This story was submitted by an anonymous viewer. At the time this event happened, I had just turned 20 years old and had just moved out of my parents' house and started attending a new university. My girlfriend and her sister just drove a long way to spend some time with me for my birthday, and this was the last night that we had together since they were leaving in the morning. I wanted to chill for the last night, but I received a phone call from one of my newly made friends, Percy, to come over and hang out. My girlfriend Anna and her sister Sarah both wanted to go, so I arranged for another one of my newly made friends, John, to come pick us up. At this point, I should probably explain the layout of Percy's apartment complex. From the parking lot there is a sidewalk that leads into where the buildings are. The buildings are long strips of one-story apartments. There were buildings on both sides of the sidewalk leading from the parking lot, with the sidewalk eventually splitting into two, leading to each building. Percy lived a couple of doors down, on the right side. Between every two units was a small brick wall to separate them, so you couldn't see your neighbors if you were both standing by the door. Once we had arrived at around 12 a.m., we saw that two more of my newly made friends were there also. At this point it's me, my girlfriend Anna, her sister Sarah, and my friend John, who drove us there, Percy, whose house we were at, and Cody and Alex, so 7 people in total. We began to chill and smoked some weed out of the hookah. After a while, we all got hungry and decided to get something to eat. Percy suggested that we walk to Taco Bell and get something to eat there. It was only about a 5 through 10 minute walk, and we had a decent amount of people in our group, so I thought I would be safe. Once we arrived at Taco Bell, we realized that it was closed. I looked at my phone, and it was 1:30 in the morning, and Taco Bell had closed at midnight. Disappointed, we decided to order some food when we got back to Percy's apartment. While we were walking back, we split into smaller groups so that we could all fit on the sidewalk, and some members of our group walk faster than others. It was Percy and Cody in front, followed by me and Alex, and my girlfriend, her sister, and John behind us. Each group was probably separated by 25 through 50 yards. When Alex and I reached the sidewalk that led from the parking lot, we saw a couple of guys standing there, and it looked like a small party was going on in the building to the left. Alex asked if I wanted to race to Percy's apartment, and I accepted. We all were still pretty high. Percy and Cody were out of view due to the brick walls. When we reached them, we saw 2 more guys standing there. A chubby guy around 5'8", and a taller skinny one about 6 foot. Right when we stopped, the chubby one said, "I'ma slap the fuck out of you right now," to Cody. No one knew what he was talking about. He said it a second time, "I'ma slap the fuck out of you." And the next thing we know, right to Cody's face. At this point, we were all very confused. Cody tried to tackle him with no success, and the 4 of us went into the apartment, not wanting to fight. The chubby one said, "Get the ratchet," which I knew was slang for a gun. We tried to close the door, but the chubby one came into the doorway and hit Alex in the face. Alex was pissed and walked outside to fight him. Alex went to hit him, but he got beat to the punch and got hit in the face. Alex tried for a second time and got beat to the punch again. Alex tried for a third time, but was stopped when another guy came running out from behind the brick wall and started hitting Alex. The taller skinny guy also began hitting Alex. At this point, I realized that I had to do something. I'm about 5'10", 130 pounds. I had a decent background in boxing and wrestling throughout high school and knew how to protect myself. I ran out from the apartment and hit one of the guys in the face and pushed him. He ran into Alex, and the other guy caused them all to stumble and regain their balance. Another guy came out from around the wall and started walking towards me as if he was going to hit me. I threw a warning jab at him and he backed away. Another one came out from around the brick wall and charged at me. I assumed this one to be the leader. I circled away from him around the building to an open area. At this point, all the guys who were attacking us were either jumping Alex or watching the leader throw sloppy haymakers at my face. I did not see my girlfriend or any more of my friends. I assumed Cody and Percy were still inside the apartment. I managed to dodge everything the leader was throwing at me. It seemed as if he was drunk or had something altering his movements, because he seemed unusually slow. Eventually, he managed to hit me in my side. I wasn't trying to fight him back, because I knew that I would have made things worse. But when he hit me, I had enough. I was ready to give him the fight he was looking for. I began to take off my jacket when the guys who were standing there watching, along with the leader, began to charge at me. My hands and my body weren't in a position to protect myself, so I did the only thing that I could. I turned and ran. I ran track in high school also, and knew that there are very few people that can catch me. After just a few seconds of sprinting, I glanced over my shoulder to see how close they were, and saw them turning around. I stopped running and started to jog back to the apartment. As I got closer, I saw a group of about 5 or 6 people surrounding Alex, with the guys who had just charged at me approaching the group. One was videotaping it, and the rest were punching or kicking Alex, who was balled up on the ground trying to cover himself from the attacks. During this whole altercation, I guess a lot of noise was being made and woke up many of the neighbors. Some came outside and began to yell and tell the group to stop hitting Alex. One ran up and hit one of them in the face. After that, many of them ran. I walked over to Alex and saw that his face was pretty beat up. He had cuts and lumps all over his face, bloody nose and lips, but he was still conscious. I helped him up, and we began to walk back to Percy's apartment. As we were walking, I saw my girlfriend running towards us. I tried to open the door, but it was locked, so I knocked on the door, and Cody opened it. I saw Percy picking up his weed and his hookah and trying to hide it. I yelled at my girlfriend and Alex to get inside and shut the door in case they decided to come back or if the cops came. Alex went inside, but my girlfriend wouldn't. I yelled for her to go inside, but she said, "My sister's still out there." I sucked it up and went back outside. When I got outside, I saw the chubby guy who had started the whole thing by slapping Cody walking in front of us, alone. I was ready to fuck him up and began to talk trash to him. We saw a cop walk from around the building, and my girlfriend told me to calm down. Not wanting to deal with the police, I put my head down and kept quiet, and the chubby guy in front of us did the same. The cop walked right past us and didn't say a thing. When we reached the end of the sidewalk, I saw John's van and my girlfriend's sister in the front seat. We immediately hopped in and drove off back to the house. When we got back, we replayed what had happened. They told me that shortly after Cody got slapped, a big guy started chasing them and they ran back to the car. He wanted to fight John, but he stayed in the car and locked the doors. The guy then told him that he doesn't hit females. My girlfriend asked, "Well, what about my boyfriend?" And he started laughing. My girlfriend then got out of the car and ran back to check on me, which is when I saw her. Alex got beat up pretty bad, but his face healed up in a couple of weeks and didn't suffer from any serious injuries. I saw the same group of guys a couple of months later at a party. There were like 8 or 9 of them at the party, so I couldn't get revenge like I wanted to. At one point during that night, I found myself outside with 5 or 6 of them, and the leader. It seemed as if they forgot about the whole thing, since none of them said anything about it. They were all talking about sniffing cocaine and about how they hadn't slept in days. When I was out there, a guy and his girlfriend walked by. The leader said something to the girl, but they both ignored him. The leader then said, "I'll whoop his ass and take his girl," and the rest of them began to laugh. The leader eventually tried to sell me some coke. I denied and told him that I kept it herbal. After I said that, one of them smiled and turned his hat around, which said, "Cocaine," in big white letters. I'm assuming that they all were sniffing coke the day that they jumped up and decided to attack some random person. I'm guessing that they are either in jail, or even worse now. Maybe they cleaned up their acts. I don't know, and I really don't care. This situation forced me to take a look at the people I hang around with and make sure that my so-called friends really have my back. This story was submitted by an anonymous viewer. I find myself writing this because it's 3:15 a.m. and I'm wide awake. Something has happened over the past few days, and it's upset me so much that I can't sleep. I guess I'm hoping that typing this out will help me feel better so that I can get some sleep. I am a female college student. Over the summer, I worked at my school with 3 guys doing research for a professor. I had no idea that one of them, Ted, would become a particular problem in my life. Rather early on in the job, I decided to tell my coworkers about my mental issues. I've had dissociative identity disorder since I was young, so I will sometimes have memory lapses and act strangely. And when I was around 18, I started showing signs of schizophrenia. And well, now I have schizophrenia. I was worried about it affecting my work and slowing things down. They were all understanding, but Ted seemed more than understanding. At first, I thought he was just being nice. I grew up in the Midwest, in particular, one of the parts known for people being nice. He started making excuses to touch me. It started with high fives, and then it progressed to hugs. I went along with it, since those aren't uncommon where I grew up. Eventually, after a party that we had had at our boss's house, he spilled out his feelings for me. I told him the truth. I have a boyfriend. I thought that would be the end of that. But of course, I wouldn't be writing this if it were. He would often try to stay late to be alone with me, since our other coworkers preferred getting to work early so that they could leave early. He would sometimes bring me things, like food. He would tell me things about how beautiful my hair is, or how perfect I am. The strangest thing that he had said was that I was the most important person in his life, and that he loves me. At that point, we'd known each other for about 2 months. I told my boyfriend Orlando. He took a few hours off of his work to show up at my work one day. All of us were shocked when he just stood outside the door. I didn't know he was coming, and none of my coworkers had even seen him before. Orlando is actually kind of scary looking, especially when he's angry. He does wrestling a few times a week, so he looks a bit intimidating. I introduced him to everybody, and he waited for me to introduce him to Ted before taking him out of the room to give him a talking to. I was relieved to learn that talking is all they did. I was afraid Orlando might beat Ted up. Basically, the gist of the conversation was, "Leave her alone. You said you care about her, and obviously your actions are upsetting her. So if you do care about her, leave her alone." The summer ended without further incident. When the fall semester started, I was a bit startled to realize that he was in all but one of my classes. He's also president of the club I'm in, but he was acting normal, so I thought it was fine. Then, he started acting strangely again. As I said, Ted's the president of a club I'm in. I'm also an officer. I needed him to sign something on a day that he was sick, so I went to his apartment and I even brought him some tea as a sign of good faith. When he opened the door, it took me a second to realize what was wrong. I noticed that his TV was on. Now, one of the symptoms I have is that it takes me a while to recognize myself in pictures. I noticed he had a lot of pictures of a girl on his screen, a girl who somehow owned the same clothes as me. And then I saw it, my first name, my middle name, and my last name. He had pulled up pictures and information about me and displayed them on his TV, and honestly, I doubt this is the only time he's done so, since it'd be really unlikely for me to catch him one of the times that he actually did. I wish I could say I ran out of the building or something, but I actually dissociated. I have no memory of what happened. The next thing I remember is wandering around the streets about an hour after I had arrived at his apartment. That incident was about a month ago. 2 days ago, there was another, and it both angers me and terrifies me. It is the reason I can't sleep tonight. Since 2 of our classes are back to back, he decided to walk with me on our way to the second one. Earlier on in the summer, when I thought he was just friendly, I had mentioned my abusive ex-boyfriend and some trigger words I had associated with this part of my life, so that he could try avoiding them. I dissociated a lot during that time. It's still traumatizing to me. I mention this because out of nowhere, Ted started asking about him. He asked me specifically how he would abuse me, using all of the words that give me flashbacks and trigger my dissociation. The thing about dissociation is that it's not a black and white thing. Sometimes it's like I blacked out, but sometimes it's like I'm just watching what's happening and having no control over my body. I think he was counting on the former, but the latter is what actually happened, and thank goodness it did. When he started noticing that my speech patterns and demeanor were different, he tried to seduce me, or rather, my other personality. I was absolutely disgusted, and then I was terrified. It takes an absolute piece of shit person to use somebody's mental illness against them like that. I didn't think anybody would ever do something like that to me. Fortunately for me, he had lost his little gamble. I have 2 strong personalities that tend to come out when I dissociate. One is kinda slutty and annoying, and the other one is a very angry German. He got the angry German one. My body walked away. I stopped dissociating once I reached the bathroom, and then I broke down crying and decided to skip class because I didn't want to face him. The fact that somebody would think to do that to me is fucking unsettling. I told my boyfriend, my therapist, and some of my friends at school. They told me to just call campus security if he won't leave me alone. Today I was consciously trying to avoid him. I was in meetings, so I was deviated from my normal behavior. I took different paths, and I didn't get coffee. I even walked home early. I live about a mile from campus, so it's not a long walk. When I was about halfway home, I was stopped dead in my tracks. I saw his car. His car slowly drove by me, and then stopped at a stop sign. At first, I thought I was just hallucinating, but could I really hallucinate a car so accurately? Down to the dent? Down to the make and model? I was absolutely stunned. I was ready to fight, but the car continued down the road. I ran the rest of the way home because I was worried he might circle back or even be waiting for me by my house. I stopped when my house was in sight so I could scope it out. I didn't see the car, but I sprinted to the door anyway. I told my roommate, and we agreed to make absolutely sure that every one of our doors were locked at all times. This is still going on, and I'm fucking terrified. All I can do is lie in bed, upset, and hope it'll get better.
E.
If you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. If you would like a chance to have your story featured in an upcoming video, make sure you check the description on information on how to submit your stories. Now let's get into my thoughts on these stories. For the first story, I think it's pretty wise of you to start paying attention to your friends to make sure that they actually have your back. In that situation, it seemed like you had their back, but not very many people had yours. Fortunately, everyone made it out okay. I know your friend got beat up a little bit, but we all get bruises and scrapes sometime in our life, and at least he's not dead or in the hospital. The fact that you saw those guys at another party and they didn't recognize you, and that they were on cocaine and wearing cocaine hats, probably is a good indicator that they were pretty coked up that night. Thankfully, you haven't seen them since, and hopefully they're in jail, or at least off of the illegal substances. Now for the second story. I included this one because it's terrifying, but in a whole new aspect. I can't imagine having a mental disorder, and you actually having the strength to tell someone trying to warn them, and them try to use it against you to sleep with you, or whatever else they wanted to do. That truly is the epitome of a fucking scumbag. Hopefully your boyfriend Orlando will go take a trip to say hi to him, and show him some proper wrestling techniques. I wish there was more I could say to help the situation, but all I can say is to be careful, and make sure you keep your space away from that guy. If need be, ask your boyfriend to go talk with him. I'm sure he wouldn't mind. But do take care of yourself. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next video. And just remember, it's always scarier if it's true.